and it is a rigid place. But if you consider the thought of what box, consider that to be your starting place in questioning, in creating the vision that God has given to you. So for my panelists, what boxes did you or your congregations have to break in order to move forward with your visions?
We have people in our church who were born there, and they are in their 80s and 90s, and they, their tradition, and they've always done everything on their own. Okay, they did not understand the principle of collaborating. They did not understand the principle of even getting help from others. And the other issue, the building itself. Many of them have worked diligently over the years to get the building to where it is now. So their blood, sweat, and tears have gone into that building. And even though many of the people that I'm referring to cannot walk the stairs anymore, they still didn't want to leave the building. And so that was one of the areas that we were boxed into.
I will absolutely concur with that notion as two churches coming together that had their own buildings. Those buildings themselves were a box that both churches had to be willing to come out of. Now, in the first merge, when we came up with the name for the merged congregation, both churches were able to keep a little bit of their box, because one of the churches was named Way of Life. The other church was Robinson Community. So both congregations kept a little bit of that box by naming the new church Life Community. But coming into the second merge, both churches had to decide that they would completely abandon the name box and come up with a net new name, Crossroads. And so that was a very deliberative and dare I say traumatic process, but we're grateful to the Lord for walking with us through that journey.
I think the box for us was coming into a new community, coming into a new family, for us to come together and to recognize that the vision and the mission is not about us, but it's about the kingdom. That whatever we do now, regardless as to whether we move on, it's going to be left for the generations to come. And so that box which was uncomfortable, I know for both sides, us as being new and the people that have been there, for us to come inside this box and to recognize that it's not about us, but to lift up Jesus.
So one of the things and recurring themes that we talk about, I think, connectionally is the intergenerational impact and what that looks like, especially in an inclusive mindset, but also being innovative in those ideas. So I'm going to kind of call on Dr. Stokes to put on her academia hat, because in her dissertation, using communal power to bridge the gap between members of the hip-hop culture and the church, how would you say that you plan, or the congregation plans, to reach this Generation Z, the millennials, in order to leverage the work that you're currently doing?
My answer will include some of the things that I've only been thinking of, that God has been putting on my heart, that I have not even discussed with the congregation yet. So please understand that. The fact that we're going to have a school building, a building that is well respected, by the way, in the community. There was a lot of fight to keep them from closing that building. And we're going to retain the name Maple in our new name for the building. It's going to draw people who have not been churched. It's going to draw people who they don't even think of it as a church or ministry. So it's going to draw them, and we're going to offer Christian values without even calling them Christian values. The other thing, we have that gymnasium. And so I've been thinking, especially after this conference, that we may have two churches in one. And in that gymnasium, God has been has put 3 young men in my path over the last year. Young men, 19 to 22, who are on fire for God. And they don't have a place. One of them is having Bible studies in his home. And and God has gifted him with the gift of discernment. And it's just beautiful to talk to him. And I'm thinking of perhaps him, it could be someone else, offering that gymnasium as a place for worship and Bible study and whatever God puts on his heart. Because Bible study in church is not the only answer to bringing people to Christ. And so he already has a good connection with young people who are in high school there, who listen to him, who come to his Bible studies. And so I'm thinking that might be one of the avenues that we'll use to reach that other generation, the generation that we've not been able to reach. In addition to that, the after-school programs are going to be, we're going to offer after-school programs that the schools do not offer. And so we're going to chime in on the arts and chime in on different types of talents. And I believe that is going to encourage young people to want to come and be a part of what we're doing.
So Pastor Davis, with Crossroads South, could you speak a little bit to the audience about the intentional naming convention and why the connection between tradition and moving forward in innovation is important to our congregation?
I'd be more than happy to. So, and thank you for the question. Earlier I said that naming the congregation, both churches had to agree that the name of the people would not include the name of either congregation that was coming to merge. But there's this notion of history, there's this notion of legacy, and while on one hand, we have to be careful about sacred cows, things we're not willing to let go of, at the same time, I refuse to disrespect and cast aside the legacy of our foremothers and our forefathers and all that they did to enable us to be where we are today. Amen. So from a biblical perspective, as we were walking through this naming exercise, what I encouraged them was the name of the congregation ought to speak to where we're going, not where we've been. And they bought into that. But from a biblical perspective, what I shared with them was when the children of Israel were getting ready to take possession of the promised land, the last hurdle they had to overcome was the Jordan River. And the instruction to Joshua was, you need to get some brothers to go back to the river, get some stones from the bottom and set them up as a memorial, as a monument. And so what we had to think through was the difference between a movement and a monument. And what I discovered was what many folks are really crying out for was a monument to all the work that Big Mama and them did. Amen. And so what we agreed to was the fact that both buildings were basically stacks of stones. That's all a building is. And so if a building is merely a stack of stones, and God told Joshua to take a stack of stones and use that as a monument to what happened in the past, then while the congregation speaks to where we're going, we can name the buildings in a way that honors the past. Now, the building, of course, on 32nd and Capitol is where Coppin Chapel worship. And part of the trauma was the fact that we happened to have been coming into this merge on Coppin Chapel's 100-year anniversary. So we wanted to be sensitive to that. And so what we decided was we would name that property the Bishop Levi and Fanny Coppin Innovation Center. So there will still be innovation, but the building will be named after Bishop Levi Coppin and his wife Fanny. And then on 46th and College, while Crossroads as a congregation and as a people is worshiping there, that building will be named after Bishop Hubert and Mary I. Robinson. And so that is how we were able to find a balance on both corners in honoring the future and our past.
I just wanted to say, think about the naming. We have gone through the process of renaming Maple School building. And the person who left the money for us to do this, her name was Mildred Cliff. And so we're naming the building Mildred Cliff and Port Fulton, which is the community that we serve that's so supportive of us. The Mildred Cliff and Port Fulton Child Development Center.
So, Dr. Stokes, you said earlier in your remarks that God gives the vision and essentially he will give the provision. So you trusted in God enough to know that you were just going to go after this thing. So to Pastor Tasha, with the provisions that God is giving you all, the opportunity for the matching grant and additional funding streams, how do you all think that you can continue to light this fire underneath both the congregation and community to support Bethel?
First, I think that, the things that we are asking God for, it's already ours from the beginning. We don't have to claim it. We don't have to pray about it. It's already ours. It's already the things that he's already given us. It's the things that are already, he's already laid in our path to just, it seems like we've just walked into this. And even though we just walked into it, it was already ordained for us from the beginning. And so I think with the people at Bethel, they are a loving people. They are people that have a mind to work. They give. So just loving them through that process and letting them know that the more that we give, the more that we do, the more that God is going to provide for us. When I think about, Bethel Bloomington and lighting a fire, when we walked in, the fire was already lit up under them. They had already had a mind to work. So basically what my husband and myself did, we just came alongside them to walk through them in this process of making the renovations that we've been doing at Bethel Bloomington, and to pretty much carry on the things that they had already been doing. So the stuff that's been going on at Bethel Bloomington, it's not new. These are things that they have already been talking about that they wanted to do. We just came alongside to pick up the ball and to carry the ball to finish it. We don't have the 2 buildings or the new name building, but one of the things that we do have that impacts our community is our homework help. I think since we've been there, last year they moved homework help outside of Bethel Bloomington because our basement had got too cold. And so this year we were intentional that we wanted to make sure that we do everything that we can and use every resource that we can so that we can keep the homework help on the premises. And since we've done that, we've had more people, they haven't joined Bethel Bloomington, but they come out for homework help. We give them a meal, they do their homework. We have our seniors or our builders that prepare the food. We have our millennials, our Generation X and Y that do the tutoring, and the kids, they just come. And so I think that when we align ourselves with God and get in position, then, we don't have to ask for those things. They're already ours. They're already in alignment for us to just pretty much walk into. And so this year, while we're at Bethel Bloomington, we're just going to continue to pray, continue to ask God to do what he wants to do and not what we want to do.
So I love hearing good stories, right? These are all examples of wonderful stories. And for anybody who knows me, I am the queen of all things glitter and unicorns. And so we can get into this wonderful place of dreamland, of the beauty of things. But my question to the panelists is, how do you plan for X? So how do you approach and or manage challenges, seen or unseen, when moving forward in these visions?
Lots of prayer. Prayer and individual conversations.
My God.
With people, one-on-one. Because what I have found is people sometimes are afraid of change because they don't understand. They don't have the complete knowledge of what's going on. And because it's something perhaps that they've never encountered or thought of doing before. And so I'm finding that if I meet with people and kind of break down those insecurities that they have, it is very, very helpful. The other thing that I'm doing, I don't know if you all realize it, but I'm preaching it from the pulpit. Amen.
Amen.
I'm preaching more about faith. Because you see, there is nothing too hard for God. We say it all the time. Do you really believe it? And so that's the other avenue that I'm using. So I'm using prayer, conversations with one-on-one, and preaching from the pulpit.
I think that we often take for granted the genius of African Methodism and how it can help you navigate your way through challenging times. So even as we were coming through the merge process, we decided that, number one, the steward board of the merged congregation would be a combination of the existing steward boards. Trustee board would be a combination of the existing trustee boards. And even as we were going through, if you will, the engagement dating process, I told the joint steward board, we will not argue over anything. Now, before that, I told them that you all are responsible for the spiritual and financial health of the congregation. Y'all. Not the pastor, y'all. Then I told them we will not argue about anything. Either God said it and we'll do it, or he did not say it and we won't. So what that does is it forces us to be more spiritual in how we handle the issues that come our way, and more collaborative in that experience to make sure that we're all hearing God together.
I think for me, failing is not an option. Not raising the $50,000 and receiving the grant, it's not even an option. Because I feel like if these are things that God has already had for us, they're going to come to pass. We might have to work at it a little bit more. We might have to give more. We might have to pick up the shovel more. But these are things that he's already promised. And so failure is not even in my vocabulary. Not even raising the $50,000 or not even getting the grant. It's not even, we haven't even talked about failure. We haven't even talked about what if we don't get it. Amen. Not to my knowledge.
And for those that are also on the panel, I'm going to start with Pastor Davis, but how did you and the congregation decide to define impact and or success throughout the process?
You have to have objective values. And so we began to organize ourselves around the 5 practices of fruitful congregations. So whatever measurements we have are going to be based upon radical hospitality and inviting people to church and having a nurturing environment. Impact defined by the second practice of fruitful congregations, which is passionate worship. And so let's be very clear. You can have a dead contemporary service and a live traditional service. Or you can have a dead traditional service and a live contemporary service. The litmus test is the passion in the worship. Third, practice is intentional faith development. And so as we said earlier, we cannot just look at numerical growth because there's a difference between growing and swelling. Just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're healthy. Could be due to an infection. So after worship, we're intentional on Wednesday nights to not teach something totally separate from what we dealt with on Sunday morning. But we use Sunday night as sermon review. Now, I know none of y'all have ever had the experience of rubbing lotion on your hand and it took a little while for the lotion to rub into the ash. Amen. But we take some extra time on Wednesday night to rub the lotion into the ash. That our faith is being intentionally developed. And then risk-taking mission. The preacher on Thursday night talked about how you have to get out of a comfortable space to really do what it is that God called you to do. So we try to get people out of the comfort zones to have measurable impact in the community and leverage their gifts. And then, as Pastor Tasha is dealing with, extravagant generosity. So we try to emphasize to folk, you don't just give until it helps. You give until, well, you don't just give until it hurts. You give until it helps. And so we try to be intentional about those measures as well.
A couple of things that we use to measure our growth. My mind goes back to Acts the 2nd chapter, verses 42 through 46, when it talked about the people breaking bread and fellowship and God added to the body. And so one of the things that we have, like I said before, we have the thermometer that measures how much money that we bring in on a Sunday that goes to our restoration. But then also by people in the community that want to connect with you. They want to connect with you. They've heard about the pastor. They've heard about, what you're doing in the community. And so they want to connect. They want you to come to these meetings. They want you to come to this meeting and to be a part of this, conversation or whatever. And so a couple of Sundays ago, we had our first multi-faith service since we've been in Bloomington. This is a program that they have in Bloomington every year. And so this year they wanted us to host that worship service. And the thing around the worship service was about all of us coming together from different faiths, different backgrounds, different communities with one common purpose, and that is to love on each other and to celebrate our diversity. And so measuring our growth by the community involvement, measuring our growth by the people that are coming back. I think since we've been there since September, we've had 7 people that have joined. We have read 3 people into membership. We have 3 people that joined last Sunday that will start a new members class. And so, my thing about measuring is just taking it from that Acts the 2nd chapter and it's God's job to bring the people. It's His job to multiply when we do what we're supposed to do. The other thing that we did that Pastor talked about as far as prayer, one of the programs that Bethel used to have was at 11 o'clock on Monday, they used to have prayer. And so they would open up the sanctuary at 11:30, and they would invite people to come in to pray. And so when we came to Bloomington, one of the things that one of the stewards said is that we want to get back to having intercessory prayer. And so on Mondays, we started having intercessory prayer. So we would drive home to Indianapolis after service on Sunday. We would drive back on Monday for intercessory prayer. If people came, they came. If they didn't come, they didn't come. We were still going to pray. We were still going to go forth. But then we realized is that people work on Monday mornings. And so it's not that they don't want to come. They have a job. And so we moved it to Thursday. And so Thursday is our most impactful day. Like I said before, the first Thursday of the month, we look at an important book. The second Thursday, we deal with spiritual growth. The fourth Thursday, we deal with marriage. The fourth Thursday, we deal with singles. And before that, we have intercessory prayer. And so I just believe that, we might have our differences, we might have issues, but if you praying and I'm praying, God is going to work it out.
Right, yes, right.
So before I go into my closing remarks to kind of tie all of these things together, are there any questions from the audience for our panel members? I'm an educator, so I can wait.
That means you better hurry up and answer your question. Go ahead with yours.
But I'm thoroughly excited about South District after hearing the testimony of these three very different congregational models, but just the energy that they are able to bring to the life of our district inspires me to go back and do something more.
Yeah.
So thank you, Evelyn and team.
Bless you. Thank you.
Question for Reverend Stowe. The school location, is that near the church?
Directly behind the church. Same community.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, one of the things that I heard throughout this conversation was essentially three key things that all tied in strategy. So if we were to consider all three of our panelists and the things that they did to show success and also to implement these very different models, I would say first you need to start with strategic conversations. First with God, but also with the community and also within your congregation. Clearly, the work was put in to have these courageous conversations in many cases in order to move forward with the work of the church. Not only did these conversations have to come into play with the vision, but those conversations included collaborations, understanding who are the people first in your church. What are the resources that you currently have to collaborate and have those conversations, but also the church itself, just collaboratively talking to each other to understand how and where and when and why these things can happen and can show up. Now, this is a little slap on the wrist to some of our panelists, but after everything is all said and done, after all of the contracts and the grants are received, there needs to be strategic communications. You should not be the best kept secret in your city, in your state, in your district, or in your connection. We need to figure out a way how to tell our stories better. We shouldn't have to hear about it here at district conference. We should be hearing about it on the radio, on the TV, in the newspaper, online, utilizing the technology that Brother Michael Jefferson has so wonderfully articulated earlier. So God bless each and every one of you, and move forward thinking about these innovative models and understand that you can be intentional. You can be inclusive, because these are conversations that we need to have as a district. Thank you so much for your time.